The Golden Goose. Hans was the youngest son of a poor family living on the edge of a dense forest. While his older brothers were clever and hardworking, Hans was often called a simpleton. Despite the teasing, Hans had a kind and cheerful heart, always helping others without expecting anything in return. His family, however, didn't value his good nature, thinking he would never amount to much. One day, Hans set out to gather wood in the forest. Along the way, he met an old man who looked tired and hungry. The man asked for food, but Hans only had a piece of stale bread. Without hesitation, Hans offered it to the man, who smiled warmly and blessed him for his kindness. The old man directed Hans to a nearby tree and told him to cut it down, saying it held a great secret. Curious but trusting, Hans followed the old man's advice. As he chopped the tree, he discovered a golden goose nestled inside, its feathers shimmering in the sunlight. Hans carried the golden goose home, marveling at its beauty. That night, as he rested, the goose spoke to him, thanking him for his kindness. It told Hans it could bring good fortune if he stayed true to his generous heart. Hans, though surprised, promised to care for the goose and heed its advice. The next morning, Hans decided to take the goose to the village to show it to the townsfolk. As he walked, the goose warned him to be cautious of greedy people. Hans nodded, unaware of the mischief his golden companion would soon cause. At the village, Hans stopped at an inn, where the innkeeper's curious daughter tried to pluck a feather from the golden goose. The moment she touched it, her hand stuck fast to the goose's feathers. No matter how much she struggled, she could not free herself. A farmhand passing by saw the girl stuck to the goose and tried to help. To his shock, he too became stuck. One by one, curious onlookers who tried to intervene found themselves caught in an unbreakable chain behind Hans and the goose. Hans, oblivious to the chaos behind him, continued toward the palace. The sight of the strange procession caused laughter and amazement among the villagers, who couldn't resist following to see where it led. At the palace, the king was deeply troubled. His daughter, Princess Amelia, had not smiled or laughed in years. The court physicians tried every remedy, but nothing worked. The king promised to reward anyone who could bring joy back to his daughter's heart. Hans, with the golden goose and his odd procession in tow, arrived at the palace gates. The guards hesitated at first, but the sight of the strange train of stuck villagers piqued their curiosity, and they let Hans through. When Princess Amelia saw the bizarre parade of people stuck to the golden goose, she burst into uncontrollable laughter. Her joyous giggles echoed through the palace, breaking the spell of her sadness. The king, overjoyed to see his daughter laughing again, asked Hans what reward he wanted. Hans, shy but honest, admitted he had fallen in love with the princess and wished to marry her. Unwilling to let his daughter marry a poor woodcutter, the king set Hans 3 impossible tasks. He hoped these challenges would deter the young man, but Hans agreed without hesitation, trusting in his kind heart and the golden goose's magic. The first task was to fill a massive barrel with the finest wine, something that seemed impossible. As Hans pondered how to accomplish this, the old man appeared once more, offering guidance. The old man led Hans to a hidden well deep in the forest. This well never ran dry and poured wine of the highest quality. With the goose's help, Hans filled the king's barrel with ease. For the second task, the king demanded a loaf of bread made of pure gold. Again, Hans sought the old man's advice, who instructed him to bake the bread in a special stone oven hidden in the mountains. The bread gleamed like sunlight and amazed the king. The final challenge was to bring a ship that could sail on land. Hans, determined as ever, turned to the old man one last time. With a wave of his hand, the old man conjured a ship with golden wheels and sails, which glided effortlessly over the palace grounds. Having completed the 3 tasks, Hans proved his worth. The king, though reluctant at first, acknowledged Hans's cleverness and kind heart. He granted permission for Hans to marry Princess Amelia. The royal wedding was a grand affair, with people from all over the kingdom joining the festivities. Hans and Amelia looked radiant, and the Golden Goose stood proudly by their side. Before leaving, the old man revealed his true identity as a magical guardian sent to reward kindness. He blessed Hans and Amelia, then disappeared into the forest, leaving behind a trail of golden light. Under Hans and Amelia's rule, the kingdom prospered. They were loved by all for their generosity and fairness, and the Golden Goose became a symbol of hope and happiness. Hans and Amelia lived a long and joyful life, their story told for generations as a reminder that kindness, even in the simplest of hearts, can lead to the greatest treasures.